would I be surprised if it's the Eagles? Absolutely not. They're a very well-run organization. I don't believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to go back-to-back this upcoming season. Now, while I will also say this, it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But the reason why I don't think they're going to go back-to-back like the Kansas City Chiefs have done is that I just don't think that the main pieces of that football team are nearly close to what the main pieces of the Kansas City Chiefs are, right? I don't care where you rank Jalen Hurts, but I don't think anybody's going to make the argument that he's a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. I don't care where you rank Nick Sirianni, but I don't think anybody's going to say that Nick Sirianni's a better head coach than Andy Reid. And I don't necessarily think it's close with either Hurts to Mahomes and Sirianni to Reid. So I think that the main pieces of the Eagles team are heavily dependent on what's around them, right? And I don't think that the Eagles roster is as good as it was last year. I think that they lost depth on both the offensive and defensive line. Losing Mekhi Becton, I think, is going to be a big loss for them because I thought he was outstanding for them. And I think they lost some pieces on the defensive line there. They lost players in the secondary. I think just overall, I don't think that their roster is as good as it was last year. And I think that when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and the reason why they were able to go back-to-back is because they have, even with an above average to just a regular good roster, the main pieces on that team are so good when you talk about the quarterback and the head coach that they can elevate an above average to a good roster to a Super Bowl because of how great they are. I just don't think that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are that. I think that they are much more dependent on how great the roster around them is than they are, hey, we can elevate what's around us. And that's why ultimately I don't think they're going to go back-to-back. And I also do think that the Rams are probably going to be the team that represents the NFC. Now, remember this, even with the fact that the Eagles were as healthy as they were last year, even with the fact that they had the amount of talent that they had last year, who was the team that gave them the most problems? It was the Los Angeles Rams in the city of Philadelphia, where they played that game, and they almost won that game. And I will even contend, I think the Rams did everything they could to lose that game, and they still almost won that game. And I think that if it doesn't snow out that game, I think that the Rams win that game. And I don't like doing the if game there, but I can't help to think if it didn't snow that game, that I think that the Los Angeles Rams probably go on to the NFC Championship and ultimately the Super Bowl, where that would have been, I think, a much more entertaining game. Not because the Eagles didn't deserve to win the Super Bowl. They absolutely did. They were a fantastic team. But I just think, it would have been a more evenly matched matchup there in the Super Bowl. Now, I will say this. The reason why it wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles do go back-to-back is because they do have some young pieces on this roster that are going to step into the roles that, a Milton Williams left with a guy like Moro Ojamo and some of the young cornerbacks that they have. Maybe they can replace Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers. You hope that they can find somebody on their offensive line to replace Mekhi Becton. I mean, they do have Stoutland University over there, so you do have to give respect to the type of coach that he is. But that's really what this is going to come down for the Eagles. If they want to go back-to-back, these young players that they've been able to draft over the past few years here are going to need to step up and play big roles for this football team. And another thing that I do want to bring up when it comes to the Eagles going back-to-back is that they were very healthy last year. I think the only player that they were missing in the Super Bowl last year that was a regular starter was Nakobe Dean, right? That's one player out of 22 players, and they had all their starters. I've never seen a team that healthy in my entire life. I mean, it's really impressive what they've been able to do over there with keeping their guys healthy and the training staff that they have over there. So you do have to give them credit for that. And that actually could be something where you can make the counter argument to me that, hey, you want to know what? It's actually a trend that the Eagles have been able to be as healthy as they were, because they were very healthy in their Super Bowl run in 2022, the 2022-2023 season. So that is a point that you can make, but I just don't, and now I hope that I'm wrong when I say this, but it's just hard to replicate that injury luck. Not only that, I also don't think Saquon Barkley is going to run for over 2,000 yards. I mean, he is, in year 8, I believe it is. So year 8 running back, I still think he's going to be wildly productive. I still expect at minimum 1,500 yards on the ground. But again, that's a guy with, injury history. So that is something that you have to take into account. Now, when I look at the NFC, I think that the biggest impediment to the Eagles going back to the Super Bowl is the Los Angeles Rams. I think the Los Angeles Rams are going to be an incredible football team this year. I think that outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Los Angeles Rams have the second best defensive line in football. Maybe outside of the Steelers and the Giants, but I even think you can make a case that the Rams defensive line is better than the Giants defensive line. But that's the team where I look at and I say, I think that they're going to be on a mission. And I think that they did the things this offseason to, build a defense to try and neutralize the Philadelphia Eagles rushing attack. I think adding Poona Ford to that defense is going to be big for them. I also think the Buccaneers are a team that have given the Eagles problems over the past few years here. They're a team that could be an impediment for them. The Cowboys are a team that, have given the Eagles some problems here over the past few years. Maybe that's a team. But I just think that overall, when you look at the NFC, I think that obviously the Eagles deserve to be the favorites in the NFC. But me personally, I just think that the Rams are going to get to the Super Bowl just because I think their passing attack is going to be flat out lethal. You obviously have an outstanding quarterback with Matthew Stafford, a great head coach with Sean McVay, with the receivers that they have and the defensive line that they have. I think that ultimately that's going to be the thing that I think ultimately propels them to win the NFC. But would I be surprised if it's the Eagles? Absolutely not. They're a very well-run organization. They have a fantastic general manager. I think they do have stability with the quarterback and the head coach. And I think that ultimately that's the reason why they're going to win. I think I have them winning 12 games this year. I do have them winning the NFC East, and I have them going to the NFC Championship game. I just think that the Rams are going to be really, really good this year, and I think that's going to be the biggest impediment to the Eagles going back-to-back.